We've all heard it before, just forgive and move on. This simple phrase, often said with the best intentions, is deeply woven into the fabric of our culture. It's not just casual advice. It's engraved into spiritual teachings, repeated over and over in self-help books, and echoed in therapy sessions around the world. Forgiveness is presented almost like a universal key to happiness, the high road we're supposed to take when someone hurts us. It's framed as a sign of emotional maturity, a mark of strength, and the final step in the journey of healing from pain and betrayal. But what if, despite all this, forgiveness isn't always the right answer? What if sometimes forgiveness is given too soon, before the wound has had a chance to properly heal? What if it becomes a tool used intentionally or not to silence our pain, to push us into moving on before we're really ready? And what if forgiving too easily, or too quickly, is actually a way of betraying ourselves, of denying our own experience and the depth of the hurt we carry? This is not an invitation to become bitter or to hold grudges forever. It's not about clinging to anger or resentment as a form of punishment. Instead, it's a call to pause, to slow down and really listen to what our hearts and minds are telling us. It's a call to question the societal narrative that forgiveness is always the moral or healthy choice. Because sometimes not forgiving, or at least not yet forgiving, can be the healthier, more empowering choice. It can be an act of self-respect and self-preservation. It can be the boundary we need to protect ourselves from further harm and to honor the reality of our feelings. This perspective asks us to trust our own timing, to recognize that healing is not linear or uniform, and that forgiveness is not a mandatory destination on the road to peace. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to hold space for our pain and to acknowledge that it's okay not to forgive right away or maybe ever. Forgiveness, when it happens too quickly or is pressured upon us, can become a false healing, a superficial fix that doesn't address the deeper wounds beneath. And that kind of forgiveness does more harm than good, not just to our emotional well-being, but to our sense of identity and self-worth. The pressure to forgive. A quiet form of gaslighting from a very young age. Many of us, particularly women, are conditioned to prioritize harmony over honesty, to be accommodating even at the expense of our own feelings, and to preserve relationships no matter the cost. We are taught that forgiveness is not just a virtue, but a moral obligation, a necessary step we must take to be seen as good, kind, and mature individuals. When we struggle to forgive or hold on to our pain, we're often met with subtle or sometimes overt messages that something is wrong with us, that we're unforgiving, bitter, or even selfish. This cultural script quietly gaslights the reality of our pain by minimizing, dismissing, or invalidating what we truly feel. Common refrains like, "He didn't mean it," "She's your mother, you have to forgive her," or "It happened so long ago, just move on," are usually uttered with good intentions, yet they carry an unspoken pressure to let go before we are ready. These statements rush us toward closure that hasn't naturally or fully arrived, forcing us into emotional timelines that don't align with our healing process. In the process, instead of truly working through our hurt, we often end up suppressing it, hiding it beneath a veneer of forced forgiveness. Forgiveness, under these circumstances, ceases to be a genuine, freeing experience. It becomes a performance. It transforms into a mask we wear in social settings to prove that we are okay, that we've moved past the pain in the eyes of others. It becomes a shortcut that soothes the discomfort of those around us, while we internally carry the unresolved burden alone. This kind of pressured forgiveness doesn't liberate us. It traps us in silence, confusion, and emotional isolation, prolonging the very pain we're expected to leave behind. 2. The difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. One of the most widespread and damaging misconceptions about forgiveness is the assumption that it automatically leads to reconciliation. Many people conflate these two concepts, believing that if you forgive someone, it means you must restore the relationship to how it was before the harm occurred. However, forgiveness and reconciliation are fundamentally different processes with distinct purposes and outcomes. Forgiveness is an internal journey. It is about finding a way to release the heavy burden of resentment, anger, or bitterness that weighs down your heart and mind. It's about reclaiming your own peace and emotional freedom, regardless of what the other person does or doesn't do. Forgiveness doesn't require you to forget the offense or to condone the harmful behavior. Instead, it's a way of saying to yourself, I will no longer let this pain control me. In contrast, reconciliation is an external process that involves rebuilding a broken relationship through mutual effort. It requires both parties to acknowledge what went wrong, to take accountability for their actions, and to demonstrate a genuine willingness to change. Reconciliation demands honesty, transparency, and consistent, trustworthy behavior over time. It cannot be rushed or forced simply because one person forgives. You can forgive someone without ever speaking to them again. Forgiveness does not obligate you to maintain a connection with the person who hurt you, especially if that connection continues to harm you. Likewise, you might choose not to forgive someone yet still treat them with basic civility, respect, or even compassion, recognizing their humanity without giving them permission to hurt you further. True reconciliation cannot happen without trust being rebuilt, and trust is one of the most fragile and difficult things to restore. Trust doesn't magically return just because time has passed or someone utters the word sorry. Words alone, no matter how heartfelt, are not enough. Trust is rebuilt through consistent actions that demonstrate real change, through honesty that shows up even when it's uncomfortable, and through a sustained willingness to do better and be accountable. Without these crucial elements, attempting reconciliation can backfire in harmful ways. Instead of healing, it can re-traumatize you, reopening old wounds and causing new pain. You might find yourself caught in a cycle of vulnerability and disappointment, sacrificing your well-being to maintain a connection that remains toxic beneath the surface. This kind of forced reconciliation can blur boundaries and silence your needs, leaving you more hurt than before. Therefore, it's essential to recognize that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, while reconciliation is a choice that requires careful consideration and safe conditions. Understanding this distinction helps protect your emotional health and empowers you to heal on your own terms. 3. When forgiveness is used to bypass accountability. Sometimes, the phrase "forgive me" is less about genuine remorse and more about a desperate attempt to avoid facing the real consequences of one's actions. In many settings, whether within families, at workplaces, or in close personal relationships, there is often an unspoken pressure placed on the injured party to offer forgiveness prematurely. This pressure can feel like a demand, as if forgiveness is owed the moment an apology is uttered, regardless of whether the person who caused the harm has truly reflected on their behavior or made any meaningful changes. We've all heard or even said ourselves phrases like, "I said I'm sorry, what more do you want from me?" Or, "Can't you just let this go already?" But these apologies, when not paired with genuine accountability and a commitment to do better, often amount to little more than manipulation wrapped in a cloak of humility. They serve as a quick fix designed to soothe the surface tension, to dodge the uncomfortable process of real self-examination, and to sidestep the responsibility that should naturally follow harmful actions. When we rush to forgive under these conditions, when the person who hurt us hasn't fully owned their wrongdoing or demonstrated a sincere effort to change, we risk enabling a dangerous cycle. We inadvertently give permission for the behavior to continue unchecked. We send a clear, though often unspoken, message that our boundaries don't matter, that our feelings and limits are secondary to keeping the peace. Even more damaging, we teach ourselves that our pain is insignificant, unworthy of the space it demands. In this scenario, forgiveness doesn't function as a healing balm. Instead, it becomes a form of erasure. It erases the complexity and the gravity of what actually happened, glossing over the depth of the hurt we experienced. It erases the critical need for repair both in the relationship and within ourselves. And worst of all, it erases the validity of our own experience and identity, as if our feelings and our trauma can be swept away simply by saying the words, "I forgive you." This kind of forgiveness, rushed and unearned, does not free us. It silences the very wounds that need to be acknowledged and tended to. It sacrifices our well-being on the altar of others' convenience. Therefore, understanding when forgiveness is being demanded as a tool for avoidance rather than a step toward genuine healing is essential. It empowers us to protect ourselves and honor the truth of our own pain rather than allowing it to be erased or dismissed. 4. The cost of forced forgiveness. Forgiving too soon or doing so because of external pressure can create a profound and painful internal dissonance that quietly undermines our emotional well-being. On the surface, you might find yourself saying the words, "I forgive you," perhaps to appease others, to keep the peace, or because you feel that's what's expected of you. But beneath those words, something entirely different is brewing. Inside, you may be wrestling with a storm of unresolved emotions, anger that hasn't been fully expressed or acknowledged, a deep sense of betrayal that cuts at your trust and self-worth, numbness that blankets your feelings like a protective shield, making it hard even to connect with what you truly feel, and confusion about why you're forgiving when parts of you still hurt so much. In rushing to forgive, you've bypassed essential stages of emotional processing, the grief for what was lost, the rage at the injustice or harm done, and the disillusionment that comes when someone you trusted falls short or breaks your heart. Instead of moving forward with clarity and peace, these feelings are trapped inside, simmering beneath the surface, unspoken and unhealed. They settle in your body and mind, festering like a silent wound that never fully closes, draining your energy and clouding your sense of self. This kind of forced forgiveness isn't a step toward healing, it's a form of self-abandonment. In the name of being the bigger person or trying to live up to ideals of kindness and maturity, you end up pushing your own truth and emotional needs aside. You silence the part of you that is still hurting and needs acknowledgement. Over time, this internal conflict can manifest in damaging ways. Burnout creeps in as you exhaust your emotional reserves by pretending to be okay when you're not. Anxiety grows as unresolved feelings churn beneath your calm exterior, creating constant tension and worry. Resentment quietly builds, sometimes even directed inward, for not honoring your own pain. And ultimately, you may find yourself engulfed in a deep sense of emptiness, as if you've lost touch with your own voice and sense of worth. This cycle is dangerous because it disguises itself as strength or grace, but in truth, it is a subtle form of emotional neglect. True forgiveness should be a choice made from a place of wholeness and clarity, not a rushed obligation that silences your pain and sacrifices your healing. Recognizing this is the first step toward reclaiming your power and allowing yourself the space to truly heal on your own terms and in your own time. 5. Choosing not to forgive. There are many situations in life where choosing not to forgive is not only valid but can actually be a powerful and radical act of self-respect and self-preservation. Sometimes the emotional wound is still too fresh, too raw, and you need time to sit with the pain, to fully feel it and understand its impact on you. Forgiveness rushed and too soon can silence this necessary process, robbing you of the chance to grieve, to be angry, and to acknowledge the hurt in its full complexity. In other cases, the person who caused the harm refuses to take responsibility for their actions. They may deny what happened, minimize the damage, or shift the blame back onto you. Forgiving under these circumstances can unintentionally enable their lack of accountability and prevent you from setting the boundaries you deserve. Furthermore, the relationship itself might remain unsafe or toxic, whether it's a family member, partner, colleague, or friend. If the patterns of disrespect, manipulation, or abuse continue, forgiving doesn't heal the damage. It can instead become a way of excusing ongoing harm. And sometimes you simply aren't ready. There's no timetable for forgiveness, no universal deadline by which you must move on. Accepting that you're not ready is an important part of honoring your own emotional journey. Choosing not to forgive in these moments is not the same as being bitter, resentful, or hateful. Those emotions can certainly exist, but withholding forgiveness can also be a clear and healthy statement. I value myself enough not to pretend that what happened didn't hurt me. It's a way of protecting your emotional integrity and refusing to erase your pain for the comfort of others. In fact, sometimes the most loving and courageous thing you can do for yourself is to say, out loud or in your heart, "No, I haven't forgiven them. And I don't owe that forgiveness to anyone, not yet, and maybe not ever." This declaration is not an act of defiance, but one of deep self-care. It recognizes that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not a demand placed upon you by society, family, or the person who hurt you. By embracing this truth, you reclaim your right to heal on your own terms, at your own pace, and with the full respect for your own boundaries and emotions. 7. What healing can look like without forgiveness. Healing doesn't always end with forgiveness. Sometimes healing is learning to live with the scar, not pretending it never existed, building a life where that pain no longer defines you, creating boundaries that protect your peace, honoring your truth even if no one else validates it. You can let go of resentment without forcing forgiveness. You can release someone from your life without reconciling. You can grow stronger, wiser, softer without wrapping it all up in a neat bow. 8. The quiet power of no. No, I'm not ready to forgive. Saying these words can feel like standing firm on sacred ground. It means honoring your own emotional pace instead of rushing to meet someone else's expectations or societal pressure. It means acknowledging that healing is not a linear path and that true forgiveness cannot be forced or fabricated. It's a refusal to silence your pain just to make others more comfortable. No, I won't pretend it didn't hurt. This is a powerful declaration of truth. It's choosing authenticity over denial, choosing to hold space for your feelings rather than burying them beneath a false sense of peace. It means recognizing that the hurt you experienced was real, valid, and worthy of being fully acknowledged. To deny that pain is to deny a part of your own story, and you deserve to be seen and heard in all your complexity. No, I won't re-enter a relationship that hasn't changed. This is perhaps one of the hardest yet bravest boundaries to set. It means valuing your safety, your well-being, and your dignity over the illusion of maintaining connection at any cost. It means understanding that forgiveness does not require you to stay in situations that continue to cause harm or disrespect. These statements are not signs of cruelty, bitterness, or weakness. On the contrary, they are profound acts of courage. They are acts of reclaiming your personal timeline, your right to heal in your own time, on your own terms. They are about rewriting your narrative, no longer allowing others to dictate how or when you should move forward. They are about asserting your sovereignty, your ownership over your emotions and your life story. And while it's possible that, with time, forgiveness may come gently, naturally, and from a place of genuine inner readiness, it's also okay if it doesn't. Forgiveness is not a mandatory checkpoint on the journey of healing. Choosing not to forgive does not diminish your worth or your humanity. It simply means you are honoring your experience, your emotions, and your boundaries honestly. It means you are human, imperfect, resilient, and deeply deserving of compassion, especially from yourself. 9. Closing thoughts. Forgiveness should be free, not forced. Forgiveness, when genuine, can be powerful, liberating, sacred, but it should never be forced, rushed, or demanded. You have the right to take your time, to honor the full weight of what happened, to choose the kind of healing that fits you, not the world's expectations. Because in the end, true peace doesn't come from pretending you've forgiven. It comes from finally listening to the part of you that was hurt and letting that part lead the way home. X. Closing thoughts. Forgiveness should be free, not forced. Forgiveness, when it comes from a place of true readiness, can be a profound gift, a liberation from the weight of resentment, a sacred act of self-healing. It can open doors to peace and freedom we never thought possible. But the most important truth is this: forgiveness must be a free choice. It can never be a burden imposed, a check mark we're forced to complete to be accepted by society, family, or even ourselves. You have the right to take your time, the right to honor every feeling, every wound that hasn't fully healed, the right to choose the kind of healing that fits you best, rather than chasing after the vague expectations of the outside world. Because the truth is, peace doesn't come from pretending you've forgiven or from forcing yourself to let go before you're ready. True peace comes when you finally listen, hold, and understand the deepest parts of yourself, the parts that were hurt, left behind, or even denied. And when you allow yourself to do that, you lead your heart back home, to a place of safety, where you can be your whole, authentic self. Forgiveness, then, is not a mandatory full stop in your story. It's a journey. It may come or it may not. And that does not make you any less worthy or any weaker. It simply affirms that you are human, complex, strong, and deserving of compassion, especially from yourself. Remember this: forgiveness should be the gift you give yourself, not a duty you bear. And when you are ready, forgiveness will come gently, naturally, from within. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.